look now, though, at the traffic chaos we saw in the morning, because we often get Leith Van Onselen on. He's a co-founder of Macro Business and former economist with the Victorian and Australian Treasuries, just to take a look at the economic impact of today. Leith, good afternoon.
G'day, Jacqui. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Now, look, you would have seen the pictures and listened to the callers today just about how many people were caught up. Some of them 5 hours they spent in traffic today. So what sort of impact does that have on the state as a whole?
Yeah, obviously it's going to be a big economic impact. So, if we just look at some broad numbers, and this is just me, guesstimating, right? I don't know how many people are affected, but just to give a sort of idea of the situation, the average hourly rate of pay in Melbourne is $44. So if we assume that 100,000 vehicles were impacted, and they were impacted by 2 hours, so they're delayed for an extra 2 hours, well, that equates to $8.8 million of lost economic activity. And then there's obviously the cost to the dozen or so vehicles that were actually involved in the crashes, which one includes a truck. So, if the number's closer to 5 hours, well, we're looking at a pretty big economic impact here.
And I guess also those trucks that are carrying big loads that are used in transport and goods, consumer goods and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, all that stuff has to be added in. But, unfortunately, Jacqui, I think this is going to be an ongoing reality for Melbourne because, as I've said often on this show, we've added 2 million people in this century so far, and we're projected to add another 3.5 million people in the next 25 years. So we keep stuffing more and more people into the existing transport network. So everything's packed to capacity. And what this means is that whenever an incident occurs, it just ricochets across the entire transport system and everything grinds to a halt.
Leith, I agree with you on that. And another thing that we spend a lot of time talking about, and I think in the last budget again, the actual maintenance budget of our roads, the state government roads, of which this one, the Princess Freeway, is one, it's been cut.
Oh, absolutely. So it's probably more of an impact in regional areas, but absolutely, the maintenance budget's been cut all over the place. So we've got growing potholes and all sorts of things, and that just increases the likelihood of these sorts of incidents. And then obviously if you add millions of more people who need to use these roads across the whole network, it's just a recipe for disaster.
When you look at funding and the way it's allocated, my simple solution, I know the government doesn't agree and they're going to keep on going and allocating the contracts, but there are so many things that are fundamentally flawed in this state. Roads is at the very top of the list. To divert money from other major projects like SRL or other major projects that we just don't need to fix basic stuff that isn't sexy but that everyone needs every day?
Yeah, absolutely. So the suburban rail loop is a disaster, as we've said previously. So, we're talking about $120 billion roughly for the 3 stages. And what that means is that that's going to basically suck up the entire Victorian infrastructure budget for possibly a generation. And it means that if you're a poor resident living in the western suburbs or the northern suburbs of Melbourne, the growth areas where you're getting crush loaded with more and more people every year, it just means that you're not going to get the infrastructure you need. And quite frankly, Jack, I think it's disgusting that places like Melton and Bacchus Marsh still have diesel trains. I mean, why can't we electrify those first and provide more, transport connections for the growing residents in the western suburbs and the north, rather than this boondoggle of a suburban railway?
Leith Van Onselen is a chief economist at macrobusiness.com.au. Leith, as always, thanks for coming on. Okay, after this.